This is Protect My Town, a public affairs program featuring mayors from DuPage County and surrounding suburbs, talking about issues important to everyone who lives and works here. Hello and welcome to Protect My Town. We'll be introducing you to our panel of mayors in just a moment. I'm Don Weiss, your host. Today we're talking about the Local Government Distributive Fund. And despite the cumbersome name, it's something every taxpayer should care about. The state's budget deficit is threatening the $1.2 billion fund that cities and towns rely on for basic services. For nearly 50 years, Illinois' Local Government Distributive Fund, also called LGDF, has played a vital role for local municipalities. It pays for essential services, things like police and fire, streets and sewers, and snow plowing. Here's how it works. The state collects income taxes from Illinois workers. Through a formula based on population, a certain percentage of the revenue gets dispersed back to every city and town. Ultimately, those dollars play a crucial role in municipal operating budgets. But with another state budget shortfall looming, Springfield is looking to take more than $120 million in LGDF funds. And mayors are urging Springfield to resist any attempts to take the money. Municipalities, which have to balance their budgets every year, have made tough choices in recent years, reducing personnel, cutting services, and controlling spending. This comes amid rising municipal costs, particularly public safety pensions, and calls for a property tax freeze which will limit revenue. While they support fixing the state's financial woes, mayors say that Springfield's power play doesn't fix the state's problems, but merely shifts the responsibility, ultimately, onto local taxpayers. Now you, the viewer, will have the ability to let lawmakers know how you feel about this important issue, and we'll let you know how to do that during our show. But let's introduce you to our guests. Today joining us, we have Mayor Jeff Prine from Itasca. Mayor, welcome. And Mayor Frank Trilla from Willowbrook. Mayor, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much for being here today. Mayor Prine, let's start off with you. How does the LGDF fund that we talked about in that video piece, how does that impact your community, the community of Itasca? And basically, how much does the village of Itasca receive in that LGDF funding?
Itasca gets a little bit over $1 million from the LGDF, which represents approximately 10% of our general fund budget. And that general fund is used for all our general operations of the government.
General obviously takes in so many different things, and it's critical. That's crucial to receive that money on a timely basis.
Correct. This money is used to plow snow, to fix streets, to pick up garbage. Even last year we had a storm, and you could say we needed that money to help clean up after the storm.
Basic services we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Mayor Trill, let's talk about Willowbrook for a moment now. How does the LGDF revenue that Willowbrook will receive, how does that impact your local community? How much are you receiving on a regular basis?
Well, we receive just over $800,000, about $820,000. The 10% that we lose comes down to about $81,000. It's a full-time job that wanes in the balance, just a little bit less service that we can provide. It definitely has a direct effect on us. We're a AAA bond rated village, and we keep balanced budgets. And in the last 5 or 6 years, we've already reduced our workforce.
You're working lean, in other words. You have a lean staff. I would say both of your communities, similar sized communities. We're not talking about a lot of personnel at the city hall or in the various departments.
We've cut a number of positions since the Great Recession, reduced our revenues back in 2009, and that still hasn't recovered from that.
Right. And again, as it was stressed, balanced budgets are critical to both of your communities. You have to make sure they're balanced, and yet you said you have a AAA bond rating here, and that's real dollars back to your community and your residents.
Absolutely, and for the state, who continues to pile on expenses on the mandate side of the ledger, for them to take away revenue that has been, up to this point, sacred, is really vital. It really hurts.
And we're both non-home rule communities, which we're already capped on our property tax increases to start out with.
So that's a limit. That's the limit as to how local funding can be spent, and takes away that local control that you as elected officials have to maintain within your communities.
Correct.
Right. Well, I want to make sure that our viewers are aware that they can go to protectmytown.us, where you can contact your lawmakers directly to let them know how you feel about Springfield's attempts to cut local funding to our communities. Mayor Prine, let's talk a little bit more about this LGDF potential cut. What would a 10% reduction mean to the village of Itasca? You've talked about the basic services, you've talked about the amount that's received, the fact that you are a non-home rule community. So if this 10% cut were to take effect, what would that mean in real day-to-day services?
Well, it'd be a $100,000 hit to our general fund, 10% of our funding. It's hard to say specifically what exact action the village board would take, but in the past when we've had these decreases in revenue, we've had to, the easiest thing and the most expensive is personnel. And usually that's the place that we have to cut. You still have to maintain your streets and provide the other services, but certainly at some point services may have to also be reduced.
Well, you're a service organization. You provide services in both cases. In all of your neighboring communities, you provide services. You're not here to come up with grand programs necessarily. You need to make sure that basic services are being provided in your towns.
Correct.
Right. Mayor Trillo, let's talk about that. What would that 10% cut, it's real dollars back to Willowbrook there. What would that mean in your case?
Well, they are real dollars, and the big issue is that I don't know of a mayor in the state of Illinois that doesn't want to participate and help with the state's budget crisis. So for years we've ratcheted the belt a little tighter. Now we're at the point where we have to consider personnel and things of that nature. So like you said, we have to balance our budget every year. So this was supposed to be a temporary thing for 1 year. Now it's a second year. So no, we're looking at eliminating a full-time position, possibly coming in with 2 part-timers that would eliminate a pension and our future obligations. We don't have a choice. We have to react to the expense side of the budget.
Right. The dollars that come from your community through the LGDF process, that state income tax that we talked about earlier down to Springfield, those dollars originated in your community. That's the income tax. That's the income tax money that's paid by your residents. And so essentially it would impact, so even one person in your organization is going to be an impact devastating, so back to your own residents. Because again, we're talking about services that are being provided.
Right, every time you have less personnel, there's a few less things that we can do. If it, from community policing down to, our reaction time to a snowfall might even be delayed a little bit. If you have one less plow driver, it may take us a little bit longer to get the streets cleared or salt the sidewalks or whatever.
Public safety, water services, and these are things that you don't worry about it when it's not impacting you, but when that heavy snow comes in or those water main breaks happen, that you need those dollars. And again, we're talking about an impact to your residents, the same constituents that legislators represent in Springfield.
Right, and the money did originate in our towns, and I don't know of a single mayor who doesn't think of this as their money for their town and their budget. We have to, at some point, we would have to look at public safety. This becomes a public safety issue as it goes on, and that revenue gets decreased. Everyone's town is getting older, which means more people will be retiring. And nobody wants to work for the same amount next year as they did this year. So it's an issue. It's vital, and it's a source of revenue that, quite frankly, I don't think Springfield can do any better with that money than we can. They certainly haven't proved that in the past.
Very good. Final thoughts.
And these are dollars that were promised to us 40 years ago when they had the Constitutional Convention.
Yes.
The state, and I think wisely so, chose to institute a state tax and share those dollars with the municipalities at the expense of not allowing municipalities to have their own income tax. So they are, as Mayor Trillo said, these are monies that were promised to the municipalities long ago. It's time for them to keep the promise.
Final thought. Mayor Prine, to your residents of Itasca and surrounding communities?
Well, we try to provide the best possible services, and as much as if the state starts taking away our monies, we're going to have no choices but to limit the services, either cut them or delay infrastructure repairs and such.
Very good. Mayor Trillo, a final thought to our residents.
Well, my final thought would be the LDGF funds are your funds. The money belongs to your community. So reach out to your state representatives, state senators, let them know that it's important for them to make the LGDF.
A little cumbersome, but it's real.
Make it whole.
Again.
You have to make it whole, and
their
that's what we need. It's their money. It needs to be spent in their backyard.
That's right. And we have a very unique way and an important way and really a very easy way to do that, mayors. And I hope that we'll get this message to all of our residents that you can go to protectmytown.us to let your voices be heard on this important issue. Thanks to the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference for its support of this program. And I want to thank our mayors for joining us today. And we will see you next time on Protect My Town.